I'm finding being in this kind of position more frequently, when my spine is parallel to the floor and my muscles are having to work to engage my ability to retain some kind of composure, is really helping my recovery from my disc herniation. And I believe any chronic injury, any pain that you are subsequently experiencing will be greater helped if your trunk, right? Because that's what we really talk about when we say the word core. And I believe maybe it's funny the effects words have on thoughts, but my mind immediately conjures up an image of, the sixth back or the transverse abdominis, the frontal core. But rarely do you think about, as I'm alternating here through different plank variations, the side plank, which is the trunk, right? And I'm thinking about my deeper core muscles, specifically my QL, which has to stabilize to keep this spine in this position. And you can imagine what an aid and and support specifically that would be to everyday living, from working at a desk, and trying to keep your spine perpendicular to the earth and allow you to not feel fatigue during your focused work, or I don't know what other ambitions you might have in life. Even if you're want to have the energy to play with your children, if you're a parent coming back from work. And the reason I'm not, setting a timer and going through 2 minutes on each side plank and front plank and whatever the case may be, is I'm just trying to add a little bit more fluidity to my movements. I wouldn't necessarily call these exercises. It's important during my rehab that I give my body more evidence that it can deal with stresses, it can deal with loads. I'll break there for a while. So, but it's not just the trunk as well. So right now, we've kind of activated this whole area, right? That's the kind of area that we're working with. We're kind of activating this, the frontal and lateral planes, by just alternating and almost, I'm kind of like kneading like a cat in between them. And this can be quite demanding, by the way. I just prefer this over, very, very boring planking here for, 2-3 minutes at a time. I actually do the plank more as an exercise of mental toughness more than anything else. But what I was going to say is, don't just focus on that kind of lateral and frontal portion, but equally we want to be concerned with the rest of it, right? The whole 360 degrees. And what we want to do here is, after we can make the transition, and this is how you start off, by the way, without the blocks. These are usually a little bit easier. But then we're coming all the way around, right? Turning the feet over, holding this position, and the muscles having to contract against this side, and then the glutes, the stabilizers of the glutes are starting to kick in, the minimus, the maximus, med, and then you're starting to make those mind-muscle connections. Now, I'm not very good this way. This is probably going to look awful on camera, but eventually transitioning over here, and then you're starting to really address most of the imbalances of modern people. Modern human beings, this is one of the postures that we should try to find more time throughout the day to be in, right? Because what is it correcting? It's correcting, the tension across my chest, even finding it difficult to talk, in this position. Tension across the chest. But specifically, actually, the hips, because I'm driving the heels into the ground, contracting the glutes, the hip flexors, right? Very, very tight. And I can only hold this position, as you can start to see my body shaking. I'm losing composure here. But making this more fluid, almost like, MMA or yoga. Yoga's being a little bit more fluid and moving from posture to posture. Again, if you're a guy and you don't... I think most guys nowadays are a little bit more open to the idea. I think any guy who sneers at the idea of doing yoga, very childish. I even want to try my hand where I'm fit enough to go and try Pilates, because of, again, just the utility of taking a muscle through its end range of motion, lengthening it under contraction, the flexibility benefits, the coordination with breathing as well is super integral to those kind of practices. So there's a lot of variables. There's a lot of outcome variables in Pilates that are just so conducive to holistic health. It's hard to disregard it as a system for that. That's the kind of way that you have to approach it, right? Like if you want to be an intelligent human being, you want to move through the world with competency, you look at each particular training ideology, be it, Hyrox is very big at the moment. It used to be CrossFit. All these different things come into play, but you should approach them like a scientist, like somebody who's experimenting with logic, and you try it out and go, I can try, you can try anything for 30 days, ladies and gents. You can try anything for 30 days. Think of it like, a fun little experiment. Be open-minded, engage with the world and go, even though, there is a perception about things, isn't there? There's a perception about, like the running club, isn't there? I think, or at least I think in Western culture, right? That running clubs are just places that people go to date other people, right? And it's not very serious. I'm sure there's a lot of people that will concede that that's what they do. But equally, I'm sure there's a lot of people who will say, this was very social, and it got me out of my shell. And the social aspect is actually the unique USP of this particular training ideology that keeps me consistent and keeps me moving, because that really is the key. That's what we're talking about here, is just a little bit more movement. Again, if aerobic capacity, feeling, that maybe you used to smoke cigarettes like me, maybe you used to, party a little bit hard, and you're kind of in your 30s, and you've gone through your 20s, and you're recovering now from kind of your debaucherous years. It may start to prove very, very valuable to your overall quality of life to choose something for a particular outcome. I am realizing that the lack of my core stability, being able to keep my body in positions like this for long periods of time, and my spine parallel to the floor, the lack of that training was contributing to a foundational weakness that eventually gave way in the form of a disc herniation that is resulting in me being in pain, chronic pain every single day. I'm 31. I'm 31 years old. I just turned 31, and I'm walking around with this outfit. I look like, I don't know what I look like. I should probably undo this actually, because I look like, I just realized I look like your grandma. But it's such an old man thing to say, or an old woman thing to say now, doesn't it? Why did you take up badminton? And they say to you, well, my doctor told me that I'm getting early onset arthritis or something in my knees and my ankles. I need something that is going to give me, I need something that is bearable, that I can do in my life with regular consistency, otherwise I won't do it. And I've tried going to the gym and doing the rehabilitation exercises from the physio, and it's so dull and boring. Like, I'm fortunate, I like that stuff. I enjoy going through the technical sides of things, and kind of finding out different angles to kind of, hit muscles. But some people can't. Some people can't find the whimsy in that. I mean, if you're like me and you can tolerate a longer form video and you can follow along and really allow yourself to be present with, I mean, that's kind of how I think about it, because I do have a very strong spiritual inclination in the fact that I believe the body and the mind are kind of very, very precious gifts that we have acquired through some act of divination. And we should celebrate it, and the way that we celebrate it and give thanks to it is kind of just spending time with it, and just kind of going, geez, let me celebrate this gift by kind of taking it through its full potential. That's what you can kind of think about. I believe there's, I think it's Marcus Aurelius, or one of the Stoics, who said that it would be a shame for an individual's body to grow old without recognizing the full potential of it. And I believe that's fundamentally true. Like, you don't want to... I do have this thought frequently, I was in the elevator the other day in Emsphere, a very popular kind of mall here in Bangkok, and there was a guy who kind of came in on his electronic wheelchair. And he was a Japanese gentleman, but he spoke English. And he looked at me with my cane. He was like, what's going on with you? Because you don't expect these kinds of things to happen. There are people born in this world who have, unfortunate genetic conditions that mean that they can't use their arms or their legs, or they have no arms or no legs. You have arms and you have legs. I seem to be talking about people without arms and legs a lot in these past two videos, but it's the best example. It's the old comparison rule. It could always be worse, and it is always worse for somebody. So, if you're fortunate enough to be born with two working arms and legs, I say celebrate them. I'm just doing a little regression here where these are soaked now. So hot here. Just to give again myself evidence that my body can manage these loads. Pause. Let's skip past that. These resistances. Jesus. Because you never know what could happen, dude. One of the things that I'm horribly addicted at is these body cam videos on YouTube. And it's always guys in the States or videos in the States. And, some of these individuals just make your blood boil, don't they? Like, I know why I watch them, because it enrages me, and you can get addicted to your own enragement and your own anger. These YouTube shows bring in millions and millions of views anyway. It can be these kids, 18, 19 years old, and they rob their local Target. It's always a local Target, and they steal somebody's car, and they crash into a family of four and kill the whole family. Or the worst thing is they kill 3 members of the family, and the father or the mother or the child is left by themselves, and you go, God, they did nothing wrong. I saw the worst one I saw the worst one. This one actually got me a little bit teary. It was an individual, a local individual who is known to the police for drag racing or street racing in cars, and he had like a Dodge Charger or something. And he was always getting into trouble with this 19-year-old kid. And this officer was trying to be a little bit of a mentor to him and, you know, get him to leave the streets. And one night he's running away from a pink slip race, I believe. So he's trying to keep his car. So he's breaking all the speed limits. And they go down to put spikes. And I believe the first officer who went to put down the first spikes was the mentor to this individual. He missed the spikes. The guy swerved, hit the police officer, and took both of his legs out. Just like took them away like they were tissue paper. Sorry for being graphic. But you know, that officer, thank the good Lord he survived. But you know, you hear stories like that. That guy did nothing wrong. If anything, that officer had good karma. You know, he was trying to help this kid, you know, turn his life around, get him off the streets. You know? And, you know, one day he's waking up with 2 legs and going to work, and the next day he's in hospital with no legs and looking at, you know, a rehab plan. Like his next 2 years look like, kind of look like, well, probably worse than my situation here, but they look like, you know, hospital, you know, holding on to those physio bars, those parallel bars, and learning how to, you know, walk again with prosthetics. Like, that's the next 2 years of his life. You know, you have to thank yourself every day that, you know, that's why I think I'm able to make this reframe, is thank the Lord and touch wood that my present circumstances are not equal to that individual. What was amazing in the video is how calm the officer was. You know, he's there and he knows both of his legs are gone, and you know, he's still so calm and measured, and even, you know, calming down his colleagues. It makes me a little bit, you know, emotional. You know, it's So what's the message in all of this? You have to celebrate your body. You have to celebrate your human vehicle. That's what you are. You know, whether or not you're of your religious inclination, I don't mind. I mean, I'm interested to know why you believe what you believe, but I think fundamentally, universally, hopefully a lot of you can agree that we are just, we are something divine, experiencing human existence through this kind of human meat suit. And the quality of that human experience is going to be elevated if this human meat suit is strong, and, you know, can function well and can keep its spine parallel to the floor and then roll over and keep the spine nice and parallel to the floor, and this side plank variation, and QL is firing, and, you know, I'm feeling, even as I can open a little bit here and I'm pushing the leg into the floor, and some of the extensors of the hip are equally helping here. And then I'm moving back around and making sure that I'm also very strong and durable on this hand side. My balance isn't great here. But yeah, when's the last time you put your body in these kind of positions? Coming back to the most important one. Give your body evidence that this is a posture you can tolerate very, very well, that you're strong. I'm noticing I'm very weak in this posture. I need to spend a lot more time in this posture. Opening up the chest, even allowing myself to breathe better, because my chest is less tight and tonic because of the bench presses I've been spamming since I was 16. And then, you know, if your trunk is very stable from that 360 degree, you know, how much is that going to add to all of your other lifts? If you're a runner, You know, how much easier is it going to be to, endure cardiovascular tension if your trunk is more stable and more durable and has more resilience. So I would flip. I would change your vernacular. Yeah, I would change the words that you use in regular conversations in reference to the core, and just say the trunk. Yeah, the trunk. Think of your kind of like body as a tree trunk, and you want to stimulate that tree trunk from every single angle, you know, every single angle. And then you can imagine how, this can translate to more primal movement patterns. And it's fun. It's kind of, there's a lot of whimsy, I think, in getting, a big mat in your room in front of the, the TV or whatever, and making movement a little bit more accessible in that format. It's far more accessible to get something like this on the floor in front of, a consumer activity that you do multiple times in a week, and introduce a healthy habit stack that way, instead of sitting on the sofa and watching the TV, just kind of, or even if it's just sitting on the floor. I mean, this has tremendous utility for even, I'm taking my joints through different ranges of motion. I'm giving my body a little bit more, resistance just by kind of, being on the hard floor. I'm stimulating, muscles that prior to, this day, when you decide to do this, because I implore you to do this, the only evidence it has was the soft couch that you lay on when you return back from work. Yeah? Or maybe working from home. That's something that's becoming a lot more common, isn't it? I mean, you're probably supposed to be working now and watching this. Well, if you are, just put your laptop down on the floor. Spend more time on the floor. That really is a really good message, I think, that would aid just in increasing, because I don't want to get away from the point here. What we're doing is we're increasing the durability, the freedom that you have available in a human vehicle. It's like anything. It's like, why do guys want nice cars? Why do girls want nice cars? Everybody wants nice cars, and they want to go in first class business. The way that they travel through the world has to be kind of experienced in this high value perceived shell. And the thing that you have direct control over right now is the tools that will allow you to increase the durability, the quality, the freedom and lack of restriction in this human vessel, just by giving it evidence, Like even, you're having problems with ankles, and just kind of being on the floor and taking, that angle through different ranges of motion. Feels so much better, and all that serotonin and dopamine that you're secreting as you're moving and working and using your muscles. It's cathartic. Like, we are still animals, we are still beasts of this earth. Anyway, I need to lie down.